Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to language lesson 148. We are going to begin with our oral language exercises. Remember to simply repeat after me. Have you rung the bell yet? My socks shrank. He bought the tickets for Tom and me. Will you bring the book when you come? Will you take the book when you go? Will everyone please take his pencil? Every girl took her seat immediately. Either Tom or the boys are going. Either the boys or Tom is going. Either the boys or Tom is going. The boys and Tom are going. Very good. We are going to continue with a review of our prepositional phrases. So put those thinking caps on. Okay, so for the first sentence we have, I had lunch with my best friend. I want you to identify the phrase and the object of the preposition as well. So the preposition would be with. So the phrase would become with my best friend, and friend would be the object in that case. You should be familiar with the next sentence. We've done it before. The sun and the moon rise in the east and set in the west. Hopefully you noticed that there are two prepositional phrases in this sentence. It would be in the east, in being the preposition, east being the object, and in the west, again in being the preposition and west being the object. The next sentence says, the syrup in the jar is from Vermont. Again, this sentence has more than one prepositional phrase. The first one is in the jar, the same as the previous sentence, jar being the object in this case, and from Vermont, Vermont being the object. Let's look at the next one together. Grandmother's house is over the river and through the woods. Again, you have more than one prepositional phrase. Did you locate them? Hopefully you did. We have over the river, over being the preposition, river being the object, and through the woods. The preposition here would be through, and the object would be woods. Very good. Let's finish up with a few more. The canary flew into the house. By now you should have realized that into is a preposition. Remember, every preposition has to have an object. House would be the object, so the phrase would become into the house. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. Of would be your preposition. The object of the preposition would be God, so the phrase would be of God. Very good. The next sentence, we can meet at the church. At the church would be your prepositional phrase. The preposition at and your object being church. Okay, and the last example is, what beauty we see in the morning sunshine. So we have, we have in as your preposition, and we have sunshine as the object. In the morning sunshine would be the entire phrase. Very good. Let's go ahead and continue to our sentences for today. We are going to diagram these two sentences. I'm going to read them out loud for you. If you would like to pause the video at this particular juncture and grab a scrap sheet of paper, that would be great. And then you can continue with me. So the first sentence says, the sleigh bells jingled merrily. And the final sentence says, the little fawn skipped clumsily. So if we direct our attention to the first sentence, you should have noticed and identified first and foremost your verb. In this case, it would be jingled. And then you would identify the subject of that verb. What jingled? The bells jingled. Okay, so that would be your subject. So you would write your verb on the right-hand side of the diagram, and your subject would be on the left-hand side. Now, directly below your subject, you should have noticed that there are a couple of adjectives that described it. The adjective the and slay. There was also something that described how it jingled. So that would be your adverb, which you'd put directly below your verb, merrily. Okay? And I'm going to give you a visual of this shortly. But by now you should have done your diagram for the first sentence. Let's move on to the next sentence. You should have identified the verb in that sentence as skipped. Again, you would write that on the right-hand side of your diagram. The subject being fawn. Now, you have two adjectives that's described in the fawn again. So you have the and little, which you'd write directly below on your diagram. And finally, you have another adverb, clumsily, describing how it skipped, that you would write directly underneath that particular verb as well. Okay? Great. So this should be similar to what your diagram looks like. You had, as I said earlier, jingled being the verb, your subject bells, the and slay, the adjective describing the subject, merrily, the adverb describing the verb, and then for the second sentence you had the verb skipped with the subject fawn, the adjectives that described fawn, the and little, and finally the adverb that modified skipped. All right, hopefully you're getting a grasp on this and you are successful at your attempt. We are now going to direct our attention to page 228 in your workbook. So go ahead and grab that worksheet and then join me again. And we're continuing now with page 228. So if you direct your attention to Think C, it's asking you to simply write the abbreviation for the part of speech above each word in the following famous American sayings. So let's do number 1 together. Number 1 says, "We have met the enemy and they are ours." If you look and direct your attention to the verbs in the sentence, you should have recognized have met and are as your verbs. Now, the next thing you'd want to do is focus on your subject. So, who have met the enemies? It would be we. That would be a pronoun. So you'd simply write PRO at the very top. And the last pronoun in the sentence would be ours. You would notice the noun the noun enemy in the middle. You would write an N for noun. And then you have another part of speech, which is a conjunction, and that would be and. All right, so just go through your sentences and identify the part of speech for each word. Now, I did notice on previous exercises that some of you only identified your nouns and verbs. You want to also identify your prepositions, your conjunctions, your adjectives, and adverbs. So we're looking out for that, Ms. Bess and myself. All right, now look to write D. On the same page, it's asking you to write a proper noun for each of the following common nouns. So we're going to just do this together. I'm going to give you an example. However, you must come up with another example on your own. So for number 1, where it says teacher, a proper noun would be Mrs. Best. And remember to capitalize your proper nouns. Number 2, for car, you could write something like Ford Explorer. Number 3, for book, Saved at Sea. Number 4, for a restaurant, Chick-fil-A would be a good example. Number 5, for country, our country, the United States of America. Number 6, president. You've been studying those in history, so Donald Trump would be a good example. Number 7, friend. You could write any of your classmates' names, or in my case, I chose to write Jesus. He's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And finally, number 8 for school, we have New Hope Christian School. All right, remember to come up with your own examples in that sentence. And for Think E, it's asking you to identify each underlined modifier by labeling it as either an adjective or an adverb. Now, just quickly to refresh your memory, remember adverbs ask the questions where, when, how often, and to what extent. And adjectives answer the questions which one, what kind, how many, how much, and whose. So let's look at number 1 together. We're concentrating on the underlined words once again. The prodigal son arrogantly demanded his rightful inheritance. Now, prodigal is modifying son in this case, so that would be an adjective. And arrogantly is modifying demanded, so that would be an adverb. So you'd simply write ADJ above each adjective and ADV above each adverb. Let's move on to Think F, which is our final exercise. That happens to continue on to page 229, so be sure that you complete all of it, please. For Think F, it's asking you, first of all, to place parentheses around each prepositional phrase in the following sentences. And secondly, it's asking you to write the object of each preposition in the blank provided. So number 1, the sentence says, our dog likes sleeping inside the house, but father wants King kept outside. You should have noticed that the prepositional phrase is inside the house. So you'd place parentheses around that phrase. And finally, you should identify the object, in this case, house. You would write that on the blank. And you would continue in that same manner for the rest of the exercise. Okay? Go ahead and enjoy working independently. And I will see you for the next language lesson. Have a great day.